All right. Well, welcome everyone. We have a full house today, and we have had a wonderful run of our Bring Your Own Lunch series hosted by the Miami Beach JCC and the University of Miami Holocaust Teacher Institute as our partner in this program. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you so much to my partner in crime, Dr. Miriam Klein-Kasanoff, who has been a wonderful friend for many, many years. And she and I have had a great time putting together this series this summer. It's unprecedented that we have, in the middle of August, close to 100 people with us on a Wednesday afternoon. So silver linings, as we say. It's been really great to be with many of you week after week. And this will be our final event for the summer. And Miriam has some exciting announcements to make about what we're going to be doing at the end of the month. And of course, then we will have lots more to come as we move into the fall. This special event today, I want to thank so much the Weiss family, Faye Weiss and her husband, and the Missner family, I hope that I said that correctly, for sponsoring today's program. It's really, during these times especially, the support of the community in sponsoring programs like today is so needed and appreciated. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just want to also say, Brenda Rosenthal, somehow you are on the screen. So if you could put your video off or something, that would be helpful. Anyway, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Riva Ginsburg, to you and say a few words about her. And then I will hand it over to Miriam Kasanoff, who will be introducing the program and taking it from there. Just a few little housekeeping things to mention: that you will stay on mute through the program so that we can just hear our speaker and have a clear conduit to hear Riva. But we will be taking your questions through the chat function at the bottom of your screen. So please do use that throughout the program. If you have questions that come up as you hear her speaking, we will get to those questions towards the end. And with that, I'm just still admitting more people coming, but I would like to say a few words about our speaker today. So she is a native speaker of Yiddish. She was born in a displaced persons camp in Fahrenwald, Germany, shortly after the end of World War II. She has taught Yiddish language and culture at both FAU, Florida Atlantic University, and Binghamton University in New York, and is credited for the largest Yiddish program at a university. She speaks all over South Florida for various organizations, including Hadassah, ORT, Council of Jewish Women, Brandeis Women, and Yiddish clubs, as well as private students, and has spoken at our community center at the Miami Beach JCC a number of times, as well as having taught classes for us there as well. So we're thrilled to have her back with us here today. And according to her colleagues, Riva has a national reputation as one of the most talented and entertaining Yiddish lecturers and teachers around. So we are just honored to have her with us. And with that, I will, as I said, pass it over to Dr. Miriam Klein-Kasanoff to take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. It's always such a pleasure to work with you. We've had an incredible series of programs this summer. And Faye, it is testament to you and your brother, Jack Meisner, and your family that we have 107 people here today attending this lecture to hear by my dear friend, Riva.
I don't know how to pair this.
Riva? Riva, it's wonderful to be working with you again. I want everyone to know that 2 years ago, Riva was actually a guest lecturer presenter for our Holocaust Teacher Institute. And She was a raving success. If I remember correctly, over 100 teachers stood up and gave you a rousing standing applause for your incredible presentation. And I also know that we hosted you at the JCC a couple of years ago, where you specifically addressed the second generation of Holocaust survivors. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing you today. I grew up with Hungarian and Yiddish, and all that I remember of it is something like, Mom, I need some money to go to the movies, and her saying, Ich hab nicht kein Geld. So with that, I turn it over to my friend Riva.
Hello.
It's yours,
Thank you.
Riva.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here and wonderful to work with you and with Karen again. And thank you, Faye and Roy, for sponsoring this amazing program, and to, I guess, your brother, who I have not met. So I'm here to give you a bissel, what they say, Yiddish, and a bissel Yiddishkeit, because that I know is in the heart and the mind of so many of us. When I was young and fancy free, my folks had no fine clothes for me, and all I got was words. Oi, Gott zu danken. Thank you, God. Gott wird geben. God will provide. And soll man noch leben and gesund sein. We should only be healthy, and we should live well. When I began to travel far, they could not provide me with a car. So what did I get? I got words. Geh Gesundheit, go in good health. Geh Pamelach, go very slowly. And hab a glückliche Reise, have a successful journey. I wanted to increase my knowledge, but they could not afford to send me to college, so I got words. Hab seichel, my kind, have good sense. Sei nicht kein Narr, don't be a fool. And de Tere is de beste Schere. The Torah is your best piece of merchandise. And the years have flown, the world has turned, things I have forgotten, yet things I've learned. But I still remember those wonderful words, Zog dem emes, tell the truth. Give tzedakah, give charity. Hab rachmanis, have compassion. And of course, the last one, sei a mensch. Be that righteous person, that good person. And all I got were words. And I feel bad for some people who never received those words, because those words are the core of the culture. Because Yiddish is not just a language. Yiddish is a culture. It's an identity. It's both comic and it is tragic, but it continues to inspire us, and it continues to give us feelings of longing, for some loathing, for others desire and pride. It's a language that is so rooted into Jewish history, and it is our language. It is unique to our Jewish history, unlike any other history. Yiddish is a living chronicle of European Jews. It's proof of their peoplehood. It's their historical experience. And it's the linkage that we have to our ancestors. It's the linkage to understanding how our ancestors in Eastern Europe lived. What was their culture? What was their identity? How did they relate to each other? How did they relate to their children? Now, Yiddish has been called a lot of things. I've heard it's a slang language. It's a jargon dialect. It's a language that's only meant for women, for children, for illiterates. It's actually even called a vulgar language. But one thing that it's been called that we have to take pride in is that it has always been that secret code, that secret language that we needed to keep us together. Many, many Jewish intellects treated Yiddish with contempt, and they considered it a symbol of humiliation. So therefore, Yiddish was a language that was in exile in very much a double standard. It was a language in exile by its enemies, but it was also a language that at times in periods of history was an exile of the elite of our own people. You all know that Yiddish was a language without a country, no frontiers, never supported by any government, just supported by ardent practitioners and sentimental protectors, just like ourselves. So you're all here because you are sentimental protectors. Yiddish was that powerful glue that connected European Jews, and it offered them a sense of continuity. And some scholars even believe that it offered them more continuity than even religion, because religion had differences. So Yiddish for many, many centuries, many years, was the language of merchants. In the 18th and 19th century, that famous Rothschild family did all of their correspondence, internal correspondence, in Yiddish. I wonder why. Yiddish was a people's language. And with the help of our famous writers, just to name two, Peretz and Shalom Aleichem, 95% of the Jews of Eastern Europe listed Yiddish as their native tongue. Yiddish was portable. It was a portable homeland, and it embodied a continuation of history. It was the linguistic homeland of a people that didn't have a home. It's a language that reflected the struggles of the Jews, the wandering of the Jews, the exile, and the dispersion. And it's a language that they brought with them to every country that they went to in the world. I often hear people say to me, Riva, I don't know what you're doing. This is a dead language. Yiddish is not only isn't it dead, it's not even listed as one of the endangered languages. And if any of you are savvy in the internet, just put in Yiddish and you will see an amazing amount of material. Today, there are about 500,000 Yiddish speakers for whom Yiddish remains its mama lashon, its mother tongue. Some continue to speak it because they are isolated, some by choice, and others by their geography. In the last remnants of the Jewish villages in Moldova, Romania, Hungary, and the Ukraine, Jews still speak Yiddish. And of course, in many of our communities, the isolated communities of the Orthodox Jews, whether it's in Brooklyn or in Israel or any place in the world, Yiddish is the language that they communicate. So for some of us, Yiddish lives in the popular imagination, fed by humor, those humorous tidbits. And for others, we just want a little bit of a taste of Yiddish and Yiddishkeit. For many scholars have commented on the language through the years. And one very famous scholar, Miriam Weinstein, she called Yiddish a nation of words. And the very famous Leo Rostin, may he rest in peace, he called it the Robin Hood of languages because it stole from the rich, the linguistically rich, and it gave to the fledgling poor. And Isaac Bashevis Singer, in his Nobel Peace Prize, said, Yiddish hasn't said its last words. It contains treasures that have not been revealed to the eyes of the world. So, isn't it remarkable? Isn't it a miracle? The survival of this language over centuries actually reflects the miracle of Jewish survival. And Yiddish has always been eclectic, endlessly assimilative, yet it has never allowed its identity to be destroyed. Yiddish began as an Ashkenazic culture around the 10th century when the Jews, of course, were leaving areas of France and Italy, and they migrated along the German Rhine Valley. And it developed as a blend. It started to develop as a blend of a German dialect, but with Hebrew, with Aramaic, with Slavic languages, and even traces of Romance languages. A very small example, a sentence, De Baba es chont auf Shabbos. The grandmother eats chont on the Sabbath. Now, Baba is a Slavic word from 13th century, a book that was called the Bovebuch, or a Maisa book. And it came from Talmudic sources, but it was whimsical. No wonder we call things, oh, this is a Baba Maisa. Everything is, a Baba Maisa, an old wives' tale. And the second word, est, is certainly German. Ich ess, du ess. And the third word, chont. Many Jews, it's a 24-hour, 25-hour food that you prepare on the Sabbath. If you know any French, it's chaud and it's Lent. It's hot and it's slow, which is exactly what chont is. And of course, Shabbos. Shabbos is Hebrew. So there are many sentences that can describe the combination of the history of the Jews, where they were. And after the Crusades, Jews again were targeted for persecution, expulsion, annihilation, etc., etc. And they started moving eastward, forming communities in non-German speaking areas, including Hungary, Poland, Belarus, Lithuania, Russia, Ukraine, all of Eastern Europe. And they, as Leo Rostin said, they incorporated all of the words, those rich words, those expressions from all these other languages. So that's how the language evolved. And it even evolved as Jews left and went to Eastern Europe. It evolved in different dialects, depending. So there's the Eastern and the Western dialects. The Eastern, with the Lithuanians, a Litvak. And of course, the Polish dialect, where they, as they say, the Galiciano. I mean, it's always a humorous thing to say, intermarriage at that time was between a Litvak and a Galiciano. And of course, there are other dialects. But the Lithuanian Yiddish, or the Litvak, is a very standard Yiddish, and it's taught at universities. And the dialect is actually associated with higher learning. So some people say, well, what's really the difference? I mean, I don't know the difference. So a simple sentence is, if you want a shtikele breit, you would be a Litvak. And if you want a shtikele broit, you might be a Galiciana. It's just a dialect. But it has created tension through the years, or humor. And actually, there are many, many jokes about the Litvaks and the Galiciana. So with everything I've said, one thing I want you to remember of this part: Yiddish was intertwined with Jewish life and identity for the majority of Jews for centuries. And it blossomed into a remarkable, vibrant, and influential literary, political, and cultural phenomena. For those of you who understand Yiddish, I will say things in Yiddish, but if you don't worry, because I translate. I love this sentence. A Sprach is a lebendige Sach. Es wächst zusammen mit dem Neshama von Menschen. A language is alive, and it grows together with the soul of our people. And that's what Yiddish has done. So I say thank you to Yiddish for being this vehicle that transports us to foreign lands. It teaches us the culture of past times and the places, and it entertains us, which I'm going to be doing very soon. It nourishes us and can be a wonderful, warm companion. We can read the masters, we can listen to beautiful, melodious voices, and we can laugh at a lot of Yiddish jokes. And we are inspired by the wisdom in Yiddish. So I think, Karen, you talked a little bit about my personal journey or whatever. Yiddish was my native tongue. Well, it was, and I only spoke Yiddish, but many, many years ago, I was offered an opportunity to teach at a university, and I realized that my Yiddish was, I would say, a little rusty maybe, and certainly I didn't know any grammar or anything else, so I began studying the language, went back to school. And during that period of time, and this is as I'm an adult already, I developed a yearning and a love for the language. And it brought me very close to the world that I never knew, the world of life before the Shoah. It brought me back to the culture, the beauty of our culture, the literature that we sometimes lose sight of. And it gave me a comforting sense of continuity that had been taken away from me as a child of two Holocaust survivors. My life was shadowed or overshadowed by loss and by death. So when I have an opportunity to speak about this passion I have, or when a student can form a sentence, or even when my grandchildren will ask me a question about Yiddish, etc., or they sing a song or whatever, it brings me, and hopefully some of you, much closer to your parents, to my parents' home, to the family whose names my children, who I am named after, and my children and my grandchildren bear. So for me, and this is a very important thing for me, speaking it and keeping it alive and preserving it has become an act of commemoration and solidarity. And it is my way of remaining connected to this past. Also, Yiddish is the language that links us, the second generation, the children that were born to Holocaust survivors. It links us to our survivor parents, to the voices of our parents, to the voices of our grandparents, our uncles, our aunts. They speak to us in Yiddish. And it was in Yiddish that I remember my father, Alav Shalom, always saying, "Vergess nicht, don't forget. Gedenk, always remember." So that's more for the serious part of my presentation. Now I want to go into a little bit of Yiddish, is the language of humor. Everything sounds better in Yiddish. And what do they say? If you don't have something nice to say, what do? Man sagt in Yiddish. You say it in Yiddish. The language itself can have humor in it, even without knowing what the words mean. Scholars and linguists write, Yiddish has formidable phonetic powers. So you take words like schlepper, I call them the SH words, schlepper, schnorrer, schlemazel, of course, everybody knows that, even from Laverne and Shirley, and schlemiel, and schwitzer, and schmendrick, and stark, and schmutzig, and I could go on and on about these words. It's amazing how many people that are not Jewish hold on to these words. Shmata, they love the words because Yiddish has formidable phonetic powers. And another time, just talking about how Yiddish came into our culture, that's a lecture in itself. So just know that it arrived and it is here, and it is here to stay. Now, some of the humor in Yiddish is even, the accents. Now, growing up, I grew up with parents with accents, and I never really thought about it too much. Some people were embarrassed, but I understand that if you have an accent, it means that at least you know more than one language. It used to be, some survivor children didn't love it that their parents had accents. But sometimes accents in Yiddish evoke humor. If you take the W and throw in a V, it can evoke humor. So there's always this little story about a Jewish woman on a bus in Brooklyn, and she's standing behind a very religious man, and she's pulling on his coat, and she's saying, "Du redest Yiddish? Do you speak Yiddish?" And he ignores her, and again, she's pulling on his coat, "Du redest Yiddish?" Until finally he got annoyed, and he turned around and said, "Ja, ich red Yiddish." So nu, what time is it? So that evokes that humor, and it's what Leo Rosting used to say was Yinglish. It wasn't even Yiddish. And that's also something I will mention in a little bit. There's also the wonderful story about a little boy who comes home from school, and he goes to his mother and says, "Mama, was meint fornication?" So she says, "Geh frag dein Tate, go ask your father." So he goes, "Tate, was meint fornication?" What does fornication mean? "Geh frag de Bobbe, go ask the grandmother." So he goes to his grandmother and says, "Bobbe, was meint fornication?" So she takes him, she says, "Komm mit mir." So she takes him into her bedroom, and she opens up the closet, and she takes out a beautiful dress, and she says, "Tatele, das is for an occasion." Well, I can't hear you all laughing, but I hope it's funny to you, because whenever I say it, it evokes laughter in me. So there's all sorts of humorous tales, stories that make Yiddish a very vibrant, funny language. I want to just tell you a little story. We always say you have to have a lot of seichel, which is good sense, and mazel to get by in this world. Okay, mazel and seichel. You can't have one without the other. So here's a story about an old Jewish man, and he lived in the country, and it was time to plant his potato garden. But this year, the ground was much, much too hard and he couldn't do it. His only son, Sal, or Sali, who used to help him every single year, unfortunately, he was in prison for inside trading and for stock fraud. So the Papale wrote to him and said, Sali, I have such sorrows. I can't plant my potato garden. I'm feeling very schlecht. I feel very bad. If you were only here, all of my sorrows, all of my troubles would be over, because I know that you would dig it up for me. Mit Lieb, with love, Papale. A few days later, the man receives a letter from Sali. Oh, my dear Papale, for heaven's sakes, whatever you do, don't dig up the garden. That's where I buried the money and the stocks. Love, your Zunale, your son, Sali. At 4 a.m., the next morning, a team of FBI agents and local police, they arrive at the man's house in the country. And what do? They dig up the whole garden, finding, of course, no money and no stocks. So they apologized to the old man and they left. And on that same day, he received another letter from Sali. My Tayere Papale, my dear father, now you can go ahead and you can plant the potato garden. That's the best I could do under the circumstances. So Jewish humor is timely and it deals with lessons in life. It's not just funny. It takes messages. It's rich in expressions that many of us remember from our childhood. It's rich in tenderness and warmth, and it praises spiritual beauty, joy, and also learning. So certain words have grown and are so embedded in our culture. Take a word like naches. That's, so basically the word means pleasure, but it has a richness behind it. It means pleasure from children, pleasure from family. It's not pleasure from buying a new car or a new home. It embodies the essence of that relationship between yourself and your family. Take an expression like kanai nohara, which people say, dealing with the evil eye. Don't let that evil eye. And alavai, how about let it be? So when one of the scholars said, Yiddish is a nation of words, well, I will say Yiddish is a culture of words. It's a culture of ideas. It's learning. There are so many words to describe learning. It's expression. It's craftiness. It's literature. It's music. It's all the things that were created by the Jews and what we as Jews value in our life. When we use the word nebuch, poor thing, or I said all those words in the beginning, rachmanis and tzedakah, some come from Hebrew, some come from there. So Yiddish embodies who we are, how we are supposed to look at the world. So in English, when somebody sneezes, one might say, God bless you, or Gesundheit, I've heard. But in Yiddish, we're not finished with those two things. We have a whole array of things that are important to us. We say, zu gesund, to health, zu leben, to life, zu lange Jahr, to long years. And we even say, sollst wachsen und blühen, you should grow and blossom in the long, in the line and break. You should continue to grow. So Yiddish embodies in just that thing all the things that we value. You know, in English you say hello, goodbye, and in Yiddish there aren't really too many terrific words for that because people don't know how to say goodbye or hello. It's shalom aleichem, aleichem shalom. But, you know, in Yiddish, when you finish a conversation or say goodbye to someone, you say, "Soll haben Nachas von de Kinder." You should take pleasure from the children. Lo mehr no begegnen auf Simchas. We should only meet at happy occasions. A gerus in daheim, regards in the house. Of course, we say geh Gesundheit und komm Gesundheit, go in good health and come back in good health. And so leben bis 120. You should live till 120, and that's a whole wonderful number. So it is a language that expresses. Jews didn't have things, but they had the mind and they had the words, and they created and took the words that reflected their identity. But let me also tell you that Yiddish is a language of kvetching and complaining. It's not only a language of kvelling, it's a language of kvetching. So a very famous scholar wrote a book, Born to Kvetch, Michael Wex. And he said in his book, kvetching and disharmony lie at the heart of the Yiddish language. It's a way of exercising some small measure of control over an otherwise very hostile environment. So Yiddish has basically turned complaining into an art. It's the only way that we have known how to exercise. Jews did not have ammunition. They did not have guns. There weren't even words for that at the time. But the very famous scholar, Deborah Lipstadt, she said, the trick, though, in life is to find that right balance between the ois, which is the complaints, the oives, and the joys, the pleasure, the fagenigen of Jewish life. So there are many expressions. You know, I mentioned the word Yinglish before. Leo Rostin, he wrote, you know, I think it was 2 books, The Joy of Yiddish. But what is Yinglish? Well, growing up, you know, being a Yiddish speaker, still the parents picked words from English and intertwined them into Yiddish. So most people did not know how to effen de Fenster, open the window. They said effen de Winde. And one thought that that was a Yiddish word. Or go to the next dorike, the person next door, or the upstairsike, which gives it a Yiddish twang, but is not really Yiddish. And of course, the expressions that were brought by the immigrants and their children picked them up and translated it into English. So if your mother said, "Shame genug," it meant, all right already, it's enough. All right already. Or geh weiß, go no. Those are all Yiddish expressions which were transferred into English. How about geh red to the Wand, go talk to the wall. Tu mir etwas, do something to me. Mish sich nicht rein, don't mix in. Those are all expressions that were said in the home and the kids went out in the streets. I just remember one. It says, "Von das macht a Leben," from this he's making a living. If you brought a boy home and you weren't sure that he was going to amount to anything. Or sei a Mensch or be a Mensch or mach wie a Mensch, make like a person. Is die ganze Welt mishuge? Is the whole world crazy? So I could go on and on with these expressions that I hope evoke some memory. And I hope at the end of this, there'll be some time for you to share or ask some questions. So I'm going through everything very quickly. So bear with me. So Jews had to become psychologists, psychiatrists, and they did have a preoccupation with human behavior. And that's really what made Yiddish such a remarkably rich language, rich in names, actually, for the delineation of our character types. So, you know, there's so many words in Yiddish that describe a simpleton. A Nebuch, a Schlemiel, a Schmendrick, a Yol, a Stunk, a Schnook, a this. But if you know Yiddish, each one is actually assigned a little bit of a different place. There is delineation between all of these. You know, I mentioned Isaac Bashevis Singer, so he said at one point that he switched over to writing in Yiddish because it's so much richer. It's so much more descriptive. And the example he gives, and I listened to it, which is very interesting in Yiddish and his Nobel acceptance. In English, you might say somebody's insane or crazy or paranoid. But in Yiddish, he mentioned, I don't know, 2, 4, 6, about 15 different words. Of course, mishuge, zedreit, verrückt, vermischt, bottled, and I could go on and on. So it's really interesting that even through this pandemic, and I hope that you are all staying healthy, gesund, staying safe, but even during this pandemic, Yiddish comes really in very handy because we're all a little zedreit. We don't really know what day of the week it is all the time. And many of us hang around the house looking a bissel zlobedik in our zlobedik clothes. And when we Zoom, sometimes we only dress from the waist up. We don't know what's going on from the bottom. Now, we've always told our children, this is funny, to have seichel. You know, use good sense, kids. Now, my kids nag me all the time that, Mom, you better have a little seichel. You better put on your mask. You better wash your hands. Mom, are you washing your hands? Where do you think you're going, Mom? Don't go anywhere. Stay at home. You're very old. And remember, when our children would get a little ungeblasen, they'd get all angry because we told them we couldn't take them out for pizza. Now everybody's a little ungeblasen because we're all a little tired of making everything from scratch, from changing our lifestyle. And of course, we can't forget that wonderful word, oi, which has become so universal. And it is, you know, it conveys so many emotions, surprise, joy, relief, fear, grief, to name a few. So what I say to you, give a couple of good ois, tie a shmata on your face. Hopefully, all of these sorrows are going to go away. So isn't it wonderful to have a language like Yiddish to describe this sorodika, if that's even a word, time in our lives? So I mentioned the flavor of the characters, and please, there are books and books written on it. And there are also books and books written on what we call klolas, or cursing in Yiddish. Now, I mentioned that we excel in the art of kvetching, but let me tell you, we also excel in the art of cursing. And you can actually think of a Yiddish curse as a big kvetch with a mission. It's going to accomplish something. Again, Jews had a difficult time fighting back. So they were much better with words than with weapons. So Yiddish developed as a magnificent cursing culture, basically a way of getting back at our enemies. And of course, human anatomy receives considerable attention in Yiddish curses, you know, covering actually every part of the human body, whether it's your hands, your feet, and whatever. And it's interesting because Jews are always, you know, covet medical school, and yet most of the curses revolve around moving body parts around. So one of my favorite ones, and it's just a short one, is "Sollst zu brechen deine rechte Hand und linke Fuß." You should break your right hand and your left foot. Well, obviously, nobody's going anywhere with those two things. Or "Sollst du haben Salz in die Augen." You should have salt in your eyes. Or "Sollst du brechen dein Kopf." Your head should break. So that's just a few of the really rough ones. But Yiddish doesn't only have awful curses, it has humorous curses. How about "Ich hab dir im Bad"? What does it mean? I have you in the bed. Or, you know, well, "Gay and drown" isn't so nice, go into the earth. But there are also humorous curses about putting your head in the ground and it should grow like an onion, which has become probably the most famous humorous curse. We're also very good at wishing things, wishing happiness, wishing. And sometimes our curses begin with wishing somebody a happy birthday and then ending it that you should celebrate your birthday without your two eyes. So it sounds pretty ugly, but somehow through everything I've read and studied on cursing, it's easier on you to curse or be cursed in Yiddish than in English. It takes a little bit of the severity because there is so much humor in that. So if you need to be a little sarcastic, melodramatic, judgmental, of course, insulting, demonstrative, or, you know, there aren't too many dirty words really in Yiddish, it's an ideal language for you. Just don't forget to use your hands and a couple of eye rolls, and then you're going to be a real Yiddish speaker. So I'm going to end with one thing just on, I want to leave you with the curses, okay? I don't want to leave you with the curses. I want to leave you with the blessings, okay? The blessings, the wishes, you know, remember I said it's a folk language. It's a language that spoke to people, and people could be angry with God in Yiddish. Oi, Gott, you know, Gott soll abhitten. God should protect me. You could complain in Yiddish to God, where in Hebrew you prayed to God. You have an indebtedness to God, whether we say Baruch Hashem or we say Gott zu danken, thank you God, or Gott soll haben Rachmanis, compassion, Gott soll helfen. We have so many wonderful ways of expressing the beauty, the goodness, the wishing good things on our fellow man. And of course, our Proverbs, there are thousands of them. So I'm just going to give you one, and then I'm going to end, and then I'm going to open it up. One of the most famous Proverbs, and by the way, the Yiddish language is so rich in Proverbs, and scholars refer to Proverbs as Yiddish Proverbs as the fabric of Jewish wisdom. And many mothers use Proverbs to teach their children, and many rabbis would start their sermons or their lectures or whatever they did with Proverbs. And they deal with so many subjects. So one that so many people know, a Mensch tracht und Gott lacht. A man supposes and God disposes. So one more. Besser a krummer Fuß wie a krummer Kopf. Better you should have a little bit of a crooked leg than a crooked head. So those two just tell you, again, the Proverbs are the wisdom. So why? Why should we keep this language alive? Why? I mean, what is it about this language that we need to work with it, keep it, honor it, value it, cherish it? And I'm looking for my piece of paper that helps me. Oh, let me read you. Well, okay, bear with me one sec. I have it. It's just sometimes these papers. Well, you know, maybe I don't. So one of the things is, and I'm going to just start by telling you some of the things because, you know, they're so part of who I am. I mentioned one that's so important to me. Yiddish is one of the, let's say, the strongest, keeping Yiddish alive is one of the strongest ways to defeat Hitler's final solution. To me, this is like the main thing. And Golda Meir, she even said that the spirit of the 6 million lies in the Yiddish language, and that spirit must continue to live. So Yiddish, I did find it, by the way. Yiddish is one of the best ways, and some of these things I've mentioned through my very quick talk. Yiddish is one of the best ways to understand the soul of the Jewish people in Eastern Europe before the Shoah. It allows us to communicate with that past. As Miriam mentioned, you know, she remembers what her mother said to her and how her mother responded to a question. And it is, if you've done any Yiddish literature, it is a wonderful way to enter a beautiful culture. And it brings sacred concepts to understanding. I mentioned before, it's a folk language. We bench licht, we light candles. This is Yiddish. And even if you're not a Yiddish speaker, people know that. It's a concept. And I gave you a couple of insights and wisdom of the language. It can go on and on the parables that I have studied, on the stories that teach us so many very pertinent lessons in life for today. And it does teach us a very optimistic vision. Yiddish is alive and well. And for that alone, it's very optimistic. It's being taught all over the world at universities and now online and music and culture and et cetera, et cetera. So it does give us joy and hope. And it does teach us how to laugh, sometimes more loudly, and how to actually cry with maybe more feelings, and to know it, to understand it, to feel it. You can become an artist with words, and you can become a master of describing the foibles, the quirks, and the strengths of the human character. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Riva. That was delightful and so much wonderful information. Miriam's clapping as well.
Yes, I'm clapping.
And, we have actually a good segue. One of the first question that Joy had put out there was, what is a beautiful phrase to comfort someone going through a hard time?
Oh, well, the Alavai is always, it should be, allebei, du gehst haben bessere Zeiten. You'll have better times. I mean, it's the same as in English. I think it's a very difficult thing, to comfort someone in any language when they're going through, but just it'll be better times. I'm here for you. Ich bin da, ich verstehe, ich höre, I don't have one that pops into my mind.
Okay, well, those are good. And we also had some people just talk about expressions that they enjoy. One is, even though I'm not going to be able to say this properly, ich bin, that part I know. And then, always something zoomed. She's putting
That's
zoom.
Great. This is a new one. It's a new one. Ich bin ausgezoomt.
Ausgezoomt. There you go.
And that is, it's taking, and this is your Yinglish. This is perfect segue into Yinglish. Oiske, it means I'm like done with it. Ausgezoomt. Ich bin ausgemutscht. I am tired. Ausgezoomt. Ich bin. I am. Yeah, I love that expression.
Although we hope you're not tired of Zooming, because that's what we have right now. But that's great. And then Judith Farber said she loves when her 92-year-old mother refers to her exercise class as kvetch and stretch. So that's another one.
Right. Fetch and fetch and yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So now I'm looking for some more questions. We have a lot coming in. Barbara Kreis, she wanted to know, is the Litvak dialect considered more educated than the Galician, or is it just really a different pronunciation? Is it truly a different?
It is a different pronunciation, but again, from my research and reading, it is considered a more sophisticated, educated Yiddish, because the center of learning was in Lithuania, in Vilnius, in Vilna, the area, and that's where they had the big yeshivas and whatever. So yes, it is. It's also very standard. If you can read Yiddish, Yiddish is doesn't have a lot of words that sound different. It's not like English, I before E except after C. The way you see the letter is the way it's said all the time. And that's very standard. So yes, the answer is yes to that. And all college textbooks are like that, etc. It's not a Hasidic Yiddish though. It's a little different. They have a different twang to it.
And what, another question about a recommendation of a phrase you can use if somebody has lost a loved one. Timothy Smith had said that his neighbor's sister passed away, and he wants to know what would be an appropriate thing to say.
I always say, "Hab Rahmanis, have pity." I don't really, I find it hard to say that in English. I don't even know. Have compassion. I have compassion. Hab Rahmanis. Bessere Zeiten, better times will come. Ich verstehe. My heart tut weh. My heart hurts for you. She was such a good neshama. Saying something nice about the person. That would be probably my way of it, but I struggle with that myself.
Okay. Lori Weissman has a fun question. She's asking the difference between Shlemiel and Shlemazel. She says she's heard that Shlemiel is the guy who spills the soup and the Shlemazel is the guy who gets it spilled on.
She's absolutely right.
You concur. Okay.
Yeah, I totally concur, and you can read all about the Shlemiels, and the Shlemazels. Yes, perfect Shlemiel Shlemazel.
Perfect. And also she wants to know, what exactly does fututzt mean?
It's a little bit confused, fututzt. I'm not sure if it's authentic Yiddish. I think it's a little bit of a English made-up thing. Ich bin a bisschen vertutzt. But it means to me, oh, ich bin vertutzt. I'm a little bit out there. I don't know, it's a little verdreht. Yiddish, you have one word to describe it. There's many, it's very difficult to find that English sometimes.
Not to be confused with,
I'm vertutzt or I'm verdreht,
Okay, not to be confused with verputzt, which I don't know if that's
right,
a real,
right.
but that's like you're all dressed up, but in a way that's
kind of, you're all dressed up. You're verputzt.
Right.
It's
Right.
funny if my kids see me with lipstick on, they say, "Why are you wearing lipstick? Where are you going?" They're nervous. Why are you dressed? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Great. And now we have Susan Rosenthal's asking, if grandparents were from Russia, was that a higher Yiddish?
Well, the borders of Russia and Poland, switched around a lot. So it depends on where, in Russia. But no, I don't think it has. It's just Lithuanian Yiddish is always considered that standard. And some Russians spoke Lithuanian Yiddish. I mean, now the cities that my parents were from are in Belarus. And at that time it was, Poland, so the borders changed. So it depends on what areas you came from. There are different, not just the words or pronunciations, but there are also different expressions from different areas. Like, for example, if you came from Lodz, which is a very, well-known city, they used to call seltzer Grapswasser, which is burp water. So they coined that. That was not an expression maybe used in other parts of Europe. So, expressions and words came out, not just dialects.
Yes.
Could I ask not make a comment to Riva? First of all, Riva, ich bin so grateful. As my mother would say, ich bin so grateful to you. It's beautiful. You were speaking of parents and grandparents, so I wanted to share with you and the audience before they leave, and I think you're going to be very excited about this. Do you remember that when our parents came to America, they would do anything in the summer to have some beautiful, fresh air? So they went to the mountains, they went to the Catskills, they went to the Berkshires, they went to Pennsylvania, to the cabins, to the camps. Well, I've decided to recreate that experience virtually on Labor Day weekend, and I am having a virtual Isabella Friedman camp experience.
Wow.
And as soon as we're finished here today, Karen is going to send out the flyer to everybody to register. It's absolutely free. It's in memory and honor of my late father, Rabbi Klein, my mother, Sarah Klein, and my brother, Judge Ted Klein. And I happen to know that Lori Weissman from New York is on, and that her mother actually went to one of these camps and made a movie about it. So I hope that you will join us, and I hope everyone here, when you get the flyer, all you have to do is hit the register link. And I thought you would be, can you tell any kind of little anecdote about those summer trips that our survivor parents went on?
Well, I don't fall into that category. But I did go visit with my parents one in the Catskills. And the reason why I don't fit into that category is because we settled in upstate New York, where there was frische Luft, fresh air. My father became a cattle dealer. So we did not go as young kids to the kochelanes, the bungalows.
Kochelet, that was the word I was looking for.
But that is, it's interesting that you asked that, because I just told you about Grapswasser. So when I took my parents many years ago, I lived in Binghamton, to one of them. that's where I learned that that's what they use. They, you know, give me the Grapswasser, you know. I don't have the experience. Some of my children of Holocaust friends, and I have many here in Florida because of the organization I'm part of, Next Generations. Many of them actually even grew up in Buffalo, where they might not have gone, or Syracuse or whatever. So I can't answer that. And coming to the United States, I was very young, so we did not go to the bungalows. Yeah. We would go to Brooklyn to visit some other survivors, my parents' friends, because there were very few survivors, and we would go to Pitkin Avenue and places in Brooklyn, but you know, not the Catskills. But there's a movie now, right, about the last I think
yes.
Yes, there's something on Netflix, I think it is.
And I failed to mention that the partnership with the program is with Karen and Miami Beach ACC and the Holocaust Institute. And people have been asking, well, I thought you were educating teachers how to teach the Holocaust. What's it got to do with the camp? And that's why I'm explaining that our parents, survivors, couldn't wait to go to the camps and the bungalows.
Well, it was also to be together. It was also to share their experiences and to be together. So I just want to end on, I think I ended on a positive note, but I really want to end on a really super positive note about the language. I mean, I come from a place of nostalgia and love for the language, but understand that the language now is growing and scholars are studying it. And as I did mention, the university and even Israel, which again is another lecture. Israel was not nice to the language in the beginning. And now the Knesset has a day of Yiddish, and there are Yiddish PhD programs at Hebrew University Tel Aviv. There's the Beit Levick House, and they're still writing and translating. And these things struggled in the early years when the survivors came. So Yiddish is so alive and well and appreciated, and it's skipped over a generation in a way, because I hear when I teach, so many people say my parents didn't, you know, wanted us to only speak English, so they only spoke Yiddish when they didn't want us to understand it. And I hear it over and over again. And that's not the case anymore. And this new generation of young people have faith. They want to go back and learn and study. And on college campuses where a lot of Jewish students have already gone through their Hebrew, they want to learn that little Mama Lushan, because it's a historical experience. And when I taught Yiddish at the university in Binghamton especially, some of my students were just history majors, not Jewish, etc. So the positive thing is it's not dead, it's alive, it's well, it's flourishing, it's exciting, and take the time to explore and engage in it. You can only be happy, and it can only put a smile on your face.
Wonderful. And a lot of people want to know, are you going to be teaching? Where can they take your classes? Is there anything that you want to share?
Well, you know, I think it was last year. Was it last year, Karen? I came down to, I had a 6-week course that I came down to the J. And, and I teach at various synagogues, and I've given, so right now I don't have anything. Everybody, the Zooms, everybody is kind of deciding how they want to proceed. There are Yiddish language courses online. I won't say through YIVO and through Workman Circle. There are, but that's a different level. I teach conversational Yiddish, as Karen knows, because she sat in, transliterated, because most people taking it now just want a flavor. They want to learn the music, the songs, the expressions, how to form simple sentences, and they want to come back to a little bit of their past.
Wonderful. Well, stay tuned, everyone. We will be sharing any updates as far as Riva teaching. Hopefully, we can offer some things soon. And we did record this session, and we will be sending out a link in the next couple of days to everyone who was registered here today. And I want to end by again thanking Faye Weiss and the Weiss family and the Meisner family.
Mickner. It's Mickner.
Mickner. Thank you very much.
That's okay.
Mickner.
Yeah.
Should have cleared that with you before.
That's okay.
And so thank you. It was a wonderful afternoon. We hope you all enjoyed it. And we hope to see you all at camp on Labor Day weekend. So,
Thank you to all of you.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Riva. Excellent.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you.
Good seeing you. Thank
Be
you.
well.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Faye and Karen. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Be well. Thank
Be
you
well.
again.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Bye, Karen. Thank you, Miriam. Excellent summer. Thank you. You helped me so much.
Well, Elisa, we have to give credit to Elisa.
Elisa,
Stein.
too. Yes.
Without
Thank
her, we
you.
couldn't get all this information out.
That's right. That's right.
Hi, girls. How are you?
Hi.
Hey, Faye. Thank you, Faye.
Yes. Thank you.
Really,